If you want to make sure you stay in good conversation, you gotta tune in to Coffee and Conversation with Collette. That's me, Thursday mornings from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. on the only station, WHPR TV 33. See you soon.
The 4th of July, Frederick Douglass's piece. And so we showed the oration of great, amazing morning to you. Happy Friday in my Theo Broughton voice. It's an amazing day. We are alive and well. All is well. No matter what the challenge is, no matter how you were greeted, welcomed into this new day, you are alive. And so there are infinite possibilities in each of these moments, right? I just want to share that. I want to speak that into you this morning because all is well, even if you don't think it. All is well because you're officially tuned into Coffee and Conversation with Collette, and I'm Collette, and I do my curtsy because that's what I do as a sign of reverence to you. Because as I share with us, I know that you can be anywhere, watching anything, doing anything, but you make the conscious decision to tune in to WHPR TV 33, Comcast 91, Roku streaming live, smoke signals, whatever it is, however it is, you got here because you knew that you were going to get a conversation that was educational, enlightening, and empowering. That's how it works. Once you get some information, then you have an aha moment, and then you are empowered. You walk in that action of how to make that information work for you. Before I get into and callers, I see, all right, calling in already. Thank you so much. Before I get into the topics or a continuation of yesterday, I want to send out condolences to the family of Pastor Samuel Bullock, Reverend David Alexander Bullock's father passed away on yesterday, and I want to give our love and prayers and support to, of course, the Bethany Baptist family and the Greater St. Matthew family, and then all of the friends, family, affiliates, and the like. I had an amazing experience with Pastor Bullock. We both have an affection for cheese. You heard me, cheese. So we would have these in-depth conversations about all these variations of cheese and the flavors and the sharpness of it and how it tingles the taste buds. And we just had amazing conversations about cheese. And I could just see his eyes twinkling as we shared that experience, among other things. And so I wanted us to keep the family in your thoughts and prayers because the majority of us, and I'm going to say this, we don't understand the importance of living, and so we don't understand the impact of death and dying. Let me say that to us again. We don't understand and reap the benefits and maximize life, so then when death comes, because as you live, you will die, and so when death comes, we don't know how to adequately process death. Let me say that. So it is my prayer and hope this morning that in the midst of celebrating the life, having good grief, being thankful for the moments and the experiences, that we all learn and continue to grow. And so we're thankful for the life of Pastor Bullock. So I just wanted to open up with that. Then all of you yesterday who came out to the property tax workshop, great, amazing morning to you. So happy that you did. We had an amazing day of service over at the Dayville Sheffield Center. And it's not over. Remember, that was just the one day that we provide the service as a workshop in its entirety. But we continue the service every day. I want to give an amazing extra thank you to the team. Ms. Brenda Harris, Quintus Leverett, Reverend Lowe, Cheryl Albright, come on, Collette, Deborah, Miss Deborah, I think I got everybody who was facilitating that portion of the workshop. And then, of course, just all the team who's there in play making it happen. Just appreciate all of you. But again, if you need assistance with your property taxes, we can be of assistance to you. You can call 313-491-0003. Again, 313-491-0003. All right, so thank you so much for that. Then letting you all know that if you desire to have an experience on tonight as well, there's going to be the play written by Jack King of The Blue Suitcase. It is the life story of Shri Tanadar, who happens to be a gubernatorial candidate for, of course, governor for the state of Michigan. His life story will be on stage on tonight at 5 p.m. at the State Theater. That's on Michigan Avenue. If you'd like more information about that, there's a 5 o'clock show that, of course, I told you, if you all called the Dabo Sheffield Center yesterday, the first 10 people would be my guest. If you're interested in that on today, again, that number is 313-491-0003. Again, 313-491-0003. And then the last announcement for the good of the whole is tomorrow. We're having our first annual senior recognition luncheon. It's going to be at the Dabo Sheffield Center at 12 noon. Should be from 12 to 2. So it is free to our seniors, and you can come out, have great fellowship, a great luncheon experience, learn of the resources that we have so that we can assist you in maximizing the moments of your life. And so for more information and to RSVP for that, you can call again, 313-491-0003. Again, 313-491-0003. And I think those are my housekeeping items for today. Now, I want to continue with the conversation on yesterday. I gave us an introduction because I was remiss at the 4th of July, and I knew that you all were having a marvelous time kicking it up and cooking food and having these gatherings and elated that you had the day off. And so I wanted us to realize that it was more than that. And so I presented to us yesterday what slavery looked like at that point, and actually what the 4th of July looked like in a slave perspective as orated by James Earl Jones, but presented in the words of Frederick Douglass. And so did you wonder in that first 6 clips, the full speech is about maybe 30 pages. This is it right here. About 30 pages or so. And so I gave us the opening. In the first 10 or 12 pages, Frederick Douglass gives an amazing recount of how the colonists here wanted to break away from the oppressive nature of Britain. Didn't want to be under British rule, British Empire anymore, and actively took the steps because they felt that it was unfair and unjust to them. And so they wanted to create their own life. Does not sound familiar. And so then in the wake of this organizational meeting that was 76 years after the establishment of America, Frederick Douglass says, absolutely, kudos. You did everything that you could to gain your freedom, as you should when you feel like you're being oppressed and that the governance isn't working for you, that you have to figure out and do something else. Absolutely, and for that, we should be celebratory. But then he gave a deliberate pause, and then he looked around the room. And these are my words. He said, and so you have me here, why? And so he literally states that, as you all recall on yesterday, that I am here, why? Is this a mockery? Is this a hypocrisy? Because I am a slave. I came out of slavery. And so did you expect me to stand here and do a dance and do a jig and be so grateful and thankful for these Americas? Because the life that you give me and have given me is not the life that you experience. And so it's with that vein that I have the podium and I have the mic. And so I'm going to talk to you about American slavery on today versus what you thought is a celebration of the 4th of July. And so that's what we entered into the conversation yesterday, really understanding freedom. And I asked you, did you understand freedom? Because I believe that if we understood what freedom looked like, we wouldn't have the conversations that we have right now. We definitely wouldn't move the way that we move. And I juxtapose that to what the educational system looks like. We sit and we want to talk about, oh, they're not teaching us. Well, then you're not free because you're putting your life in someone else's hands. That you still believe that the oppressiveness, the governance, the policy of what was established under the business of education was going to then empower you through education as a person of color, as someone who was looked at as half of, and you think that they're going to give you the tools to be successful in America. So to me, that was an example of having a mindset in which you weren't free. I also presented it as such about housing and what that looked like, an adequate coverage. And so we then are looking for the handout that, oh, we should have this. And so I asked yet again, the same oppressiveness and the nature that governs what it looks like under the business of housing, did you believe that they were going to provide you with something if you are who you are in these Americas? And so we gave examples of examples, and I know that you all were a little dormant with it, a little tired, a little quiet, because I don't believe that you looked at it that way. Because I believe that we believe under the ideal of America that we are free, the idea, right? That so you believe that because you are presented with that you can go anywhere, I can travel anywhere, I can do anything, that you believe that you're free. And so then I gave us, I believe it was an interesting piece on what Neo says, what Morpheus says in The Matrix about what it looks like, what we're fighting against. And so we're living in this fallacy space because the same people that we work with every day, the businessmen, the lawyers, the teachers, the carpenters, and the like, are fighting for this system. And they will fight more for the system as it is than to change it to make it better for us, because that's what they've been indoctrinated into. That's what we've been indoctrinated into. And so I asked you, okay, based on that, where are we? Are we free? That's where we were. And so I hope you thought about it last night. I hope you spent some time on it last night. And so we're going to continue that conversation on today. And then, of course, you know, as we do, because we have 2 hours together today, that at that top of that 8 o'clock hour, we can then infuse any other items in that conversation. Before I get to the lines, I want to show you this little 2-minute clip. This is going to be my Black History moment on today. The 2-minute clip, there's an amazing woman by the name of Nellie Jackson. We celebrated her on the 11th of July. She is, I'm going to let you see the clip, and then we're going to talk about her, okay? And then I'm going to get to the lines. Enjoy the clip.
Natchez History Minute is brought to you by Natchez National Historical Park.
Nellie Jackson, the Madam of Natchez, died on this day, July 11th, in 1990. She was 87 years old and had run her bordello for over 60 years. Born into rural poverty in 1902, she became a powerful person in Natchez, operating a very successful business simply known as Nellie's, located in a nondescript house at the corner of Rankin and Monroe Streets. Jackson maintained high standards in running her house. She would not let anyone in drunk or after midnight. As the Houston Chronicle reported, if you wanted a girl at Nellie Jackson's place, you arrived before midnight and you arrived sober. A local legend, Nellie was popular with other business owners in downtown Natchez, as well as a friend to various mayors, aldermen, and law enforcement officers. Joan Gandy, then managing editor of the Natchez Democrat and a close friend of Nellie's, described her as an utterly kind person who never had hard feelings toward another. She cared about the young woman who worked there, Gandy said. If they called up years later needing help, she would help. Nellie was regularly spotted on the back pew at St. Mary Basilica and behind the wheel of her Cadillac, accompanied by her adored French poodles. Nellie Jackson died a week after a neighbor doused her with gasoline and set her afire after she refused him service. Former Alderman Paul O'Malley noted how a community could have so much affection for a local madam. "It's very strange, I know," he said. But she was the sort of person who was living in the presence of both the devil and the Lord.
Hi, this is Lindsay Shelton, Assistant Editor of the Natchez Democrat, standing in front of Nellie's place, and this has been your Natchez History Minute.
Share that with you because it's always those bits of history. Did you all know that in Natchez, Mississippi, the Nellie Jackson ran a successful bordello? Did you get that? That she was born into poverty shortly after slavery, walked some 26 miles from where she was as a teen, no money, and established a thriving business in rural Mississippi. And so that everyone knew her. She was a philanthropist, put students through college, made donations to organizations. I did a little digging. That clip didn't show you that, but had what they believed was this very powerful black book. And so she was able to maneuver. That's freedom. Did you get that? At a time, a black woman running a successful bordello in rural Mississippi that everybody knew about and would have continued to thrive up until the point that she was set on fire, not because of what she was doing, but because the neighbor was mad that she wouldn't service him. Freedom is knowing that no matter what happens around me, I'm going to create an opportunity for myself. And I wanted to start off with that because a lot of times we see things and we're always so fearful. we live in fear. We were just taught to be fearful. We were traumatized. We live in trauma. Just so you all know, Social Security actually now has PTSD as one of its new classifications for a potential benefit. Did you know that? PTSD. So if you have post-traumatic stress disorder, I believe all of us who grew up in urban environments are traumatized, have PTSD, as it now is classified. But at the end of the day, she's an example of what you can do with your life when you make the decision. And she made the decision. And what you all hear, she rolled around her car, the town in her Cadillac with her poodles. And I want you to see a picture of her because she made America work for her. So you got to understand the situation that you're in. You got to understand what is around you because there's always an opportunity around you. You have to determine if you're going to actively be who you say you want to be, and then take the steps to do that, and then make sure you have some assurance. Her little black book was the assurance that, you know what, I'm good. You guys aren't going to come and close me down because I believe that probably the top officials in that town were her customers, and everybody knew. It was understood. So I thank you for the life and lessons of Mrs. Nellie Jackson. That was just, I thought, a very interesting piece that I want to share. Coming off of a great conversation, one of the callers presented yesterday, the Devil's Punch Bowl, the horrific Holocaust of blacks in Mississippi, the same location, where they were still buried to this day. And they say the best wild peaches come up from this wild terrain that no one's able to get through, but no one dare touch the peaches because they know what the fertilization is. Did you get that? The fertilization are all of the lives that were taken through horrific conditions and wouldn't let the children and the women leave the space to even offered, as the caller shared, to go back into slavery. They offered to go back into slavery if you just let them free from this space, this encampment, and they wouldn't. The powers that be that wouldn't, and so they died. Instead of having proper burials, they just gave them shovels. And so there's this forbidden fruit, if you will, now that grows so wild, and they showed some pictures of the nectar, and it looked so scrumptious, but of course no one's going to eat it because the fertilization of those trees that birthed those beautiful fruits was out of our sisters and brothers and family. Our history in the fight for freedom. And yet we have opportunities every day and we don't seize them. That's a freedom. Do you realize that? We're thinking today. We're going to get into some things today. I got another clip. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the lines right now. I'm going to get a couple of you all in. I got another clip. Because then I started thinking last night, you know, I try to dissect what we experience every day and then figure how to enhance the conversation. And I was thinking last night that maybe we don't really understand what freedom looks like because we don't understand power. Because you can't have freedom without power. And so maybe as a whole, we never understood how America obtained its power. And so therefore, we don't understand what power looks like, and then to be able to trickle it down into how we are empowered. So the next clip, when we go to the clip, is going to show how America became a superpower. And then we're going to talk about how that power creates freedom. But I'm going to go to the line first. Thanks so much for your patience. Great, amazing morning to you.
Thank you so much for always giving us history that we need to marinate this. We need to understand and we need to be encouraged, stay encouraged.
Oh, yes.
I appreciate that. 2018, we just had more modern-day slavery mentally. Yes. We need to continue to educate, navigate in order to liberate through these states. Thank you for taking my call.
Oh, always. Thank you. Did you get that? And again, I tell us all the time, guess what? We can't change history. We cannot change his story. That's the past. It's what you make right now. It's what you do with what you have right now. And you learn from that so it doesn't repeat itself. But I hope that from the piece that Miss Nellie Jackson has shown us is that anything is accomplishable, right? You can accomplish anything that you put your mind to. You don't sit and let somebody tell you no. She didn't let somebody tell her no. Because I'm sure, can you imagine at that time, she successfully ran the brothel for 60 years. So imagine at that time of establishing back in the early 1900s, who was just trying, that was just, what, 25 years after Frederick Douglass gave his speech. No, it's a little bit more than that because I was in, what, 1852. So do the math. I mean, but it was 50 years after that. That was 76 years since America was in its celebration. So we was only 100 years old, established. And this black woman in rural Mississippi said, I got you. Supply and demand. I know what you want. I know what doesn't go old. I know what always sells. And I'm going to create a business around it. She did it. She did it. We can too. Let me get to the line. Thanks for your patience. Great, amazing morning to you.
Good morning, fellow patriots.
Good morning, Patriot.
I always need a conversation about awakening black people up into their destiny in America.
Right.
This is something I've been trying to do for some years now.
You have.
Because we keep being stuck on their history instead of ours.
Right.
We have a history in America. The flag is important to a lot of black people in America.
Sure.
I'm so proud to be a black man in America because we had one of the best mayors that I lived under, Coleman Alexander Young Sr.
Yes.
In Detroit.
Yes.
So I'm just happy to be a black man, and I know my history because that's all I read when I was coming up was about us.
Yeah.
I never read about them. I mean, of course, you got to read about them because they almost like throw their stuff on us, okay?
Right.
So you got to read about them, but I've been reading about us since I was like 8 years old, okay?
Yeah.
So to me, black when I say America, I think about black people.
Nice.
When I think about America, and being in the blackest city in pretty much in the country,
yeah,
I was even more proud of being a black American and love being around my black people.
Yes. And stay there for a minute, Patriot, because I want to really bring out the point that you made. Did you all get what he just said? He knew in the onset that he had to shape his narrative. Did you? I really want you all to get what he just said. That he has always looked at things from the lens of being black. So who I am and how I progress and what it looks like for me didn't start for me idolizing and looking and studying and being so engrossed in their history because you live in their history every day. It was that I knew that I came from greatness, that what they show you, you should always know that there's a backstory, that they're always more than what they present. But we don't ever question that, right? So that you knew at that age, and bless your mother who instilled those things in you, I'm sure, that guess what? This is my story. And so because I know who I am, I can walk proudly in that, regardless of what is happening around me. So I want you all to get that, because again, it's what you think. It's what you think to believe you are. And if you don't put a value on you, especially in a climate where people want to be oppressive and exert their power over you, you will freely give your power away if you don't understand that you have value. You'll just give it away. You'll just give it away all day, every day. Oh, we can't. Oh, we shouldn't. Oh, you don't know. Man, did you see Nellie Jackson? I'm just saying. Did you see it?
Collette, when you think that, I'm really tired of black people saying that, okay?
Okay.
What they can't do.
Yes.
And when we the leaders of everything, last week they had the Williams sisters on both on channels, both of them playing at the same time, Venus and Serena. And they had a split channel. So,
yes.
I don't see we see greatness in us by even American history, and we still deny how great we are.
Yes. You know why? You hit it on the head, Les. But see, when you see the greatness, then there's an action that's attached to it. So, great point. Venus and Serena, they didn't get there by osmosis. You know how much work and time and dedication and perseverance and scrutiny that they had to endure as an early child to get to where they are right now? We don't want to do the work. We fight doing the work for us. We'll fight to work for everybody else all the time. All the time. You hear me? We will get up early. We will be at that place of business that we don't own, that we don't have stock in, that we will never have stock in, and we will treat their products and services and money like it's ours. And we will safeguard it better than any watchdog that was around, and specifically block opportunities for people that look like us in those same spaces.
And I see so readily when they came up and took over the school system,
Yes.
Public Act 4.
Yes.
To me, we had so many people just sitting back and letting this happen, taking away the freedom of making the decision to vote for our own school board, to
Yes.
control our own destiny.
Yes.
We just so easily gave that away without a real fight. Somebody should have been going to jail. Somebody should have been dead. I was prepared to die for
All right.
myself, and I still am.
Yeah.
Because I think Public Act 436 is the most un-American bill in our time.
Sure.
Because it's a threat to democracy in our country. If we don't fight for home rule, because we don't need to be a part of the Democratic Party, because it's no, I guess you don't have to be a Democrat or Republican to run for city council. It's that's a partisan position.
No.
And the mayor.
Let me just say right there, and shame on us who don't get that. There used to be something to be said about being a part of a specific party, no matter what that was. I remember growing up, if you were a Democrat, proud Democrats doing things. I told you all, 10 years old, sitting on the steps. That's when Jimmy Carter lost to Ronald Reagan, and I cried. And I was like, my life will never be the same again because the Republican is now in office. And then I did my research. I was 10, and then I learned that the first Republicans were black folk.
Right.
And we didn't want to talk about that because we were never for handouts. We were always for pull yourself up by the bootstraps, do the work, get it done. Conservative people. That's who we were. But we don't know any of that, so now we're all over the place. We're just all over the place. And we can easily be bought. See, so again, to Patriot, he's putting it out there because you all don't even understand you're not free. I know you don't like that. I'm sorry. But you're not free. Because if you were free, you wouldn't have had the lack of desire to fight an Emergency Manager Act that was in place for 18 years. Y'all saw, we brought that article up. It's just ended. So 18 years? I'm going to pull up the article and make sure I'm giving that correctly. But control over our assets from the schools and for 18 years.
And I don't get that, Collette, for the sacrifices so many black people gave to get us in this position, to just almost like sitting back and letting it happen.
Giving it
without
away.
any real fight. And,
Yes.
I take my hat off to Keep the Vote No Takeover, led by Helen Moore.
Yes.
And, a lot of other great patriots.
Yes.
I'm happy to be a part of that, association. So I just didn't understand why these principals, these guys who had the PhD, were sitting down telling us to shut up when we were trying to shut these illegal school board meetings down.
Yes,
I
you
thought
do.
they should have been joining us,
No.
and that we should have been turning that auditorium, and we should have had tarred and feathered Freeman Hendricks and sent him packing. But we just
We weren't going to do that, Patriot.
Nice.
We weren't going to do that because remember, that's that whole Talented 10th. So those of us, the working class, you know what, this is what I need you to do. I need you to hold on because you have introed the perfect segue into how America has become a superpower. So if you hold on, I want us to go to this clip. And all the lines are lit, so everyone, I'm going to get to you because we have time to really finesse this conversation this morning. But I want us to put a pin right there. We're going to talk about what power looks like. So then when we ask the questions of why the PhDs and those educated folk weren't really fighting for the rights of the common man, you'll really understand why. So hold the line. Let's go to the clip, okay?
All right.
Okay, we're getting it together. Thanks so much, Sean. We're getting it together. So I'm going to give another preempt because in the midst of that, and that's what we talk about all the time, if you don't know, why would you expect someone who doesn't identify with you to be able to govern you? Let me just say that one more time. Why would you think that someone who doesn't identify with you, because you thought that they look like you, because you thought that your skin hue was the same color, that they were going to have your best at heart, right? That's what you thought? So you thought that they were going to create policies and enact things that were going to make it work for you? That's what you thought? And so then when we've consistently seen it, though, like this is not a nuance for us here. We specifically, I'm talking about Detroit, we specifically see it in Detroit. And then the results are still the same. And then I just wonder why, and I ask you all, why is everybody still fighting to get into public office? That's what I don't understand. Like, what, you actually think that you are going to get into a space? Do you understand politics? So maybe that's the freedom component conversation as well. Because you really don't understand politics. Because if you understood politics, you would know that when you walk into that office, you're beheld to the dollars that come into you as support for who you are in that position. You're bought. Y'all don't want to believe that. Or you want to believe that some people get monies from certain groups that are the good groups and they don't get money from the bad groups. And so, but okay, even if it's, quote, the good groups, you're still beheld to what the good groups want you to do. Do y'all understand what I'm talking about? If you understood freedom, you'd understand that you have the reality then to say, guess what? I know it. I'm going to remove myself from it. And then I'm going to create my power base and I'm going to make moves around it. I'm going to get some things that are going to be my assurance. I'm going to keep those behind my back. So when y'all come at me, I got something dangling over here. Now, see, that's how it works. Again, go back to Nellie. Nellie had to have had something. She had a little black book, a big black book. She had something that would allow her to maneuver. And I'm talking about it was generational. 60 years that jokers didn't mess with her. And wouldn't have messed with her because she had something on them. We don't understand how to get things on people. We don't understand America. And everyone else gets stuff on us all day and just manipulates us like the Geppetto to the Pinocchio. Les, did you want to comment on that while we're waiting for the clip?
You know, Collette, when you were saying that, I read about a whole lot of Nellies in my life.
Yeah.
You know, I always thought Hollywood was, still rich with untapped history.
Sure.
And that's African American history. So we got so many. All I keep seeing is their stories keep repeating over and over and over again for the last 60 years.
Yes.
That's what they've been doing. So most of the movies that they show, they have been put out for years ago. They just revived it. But there's the one thing that they have not tapped into is the history of African Americans. There's so many stories to be told in Hollywood about us.
Right.
That we could never finish telling them in our lifetime.
That's right. Well, stay there, Stay right there, Les. And I think you make a really valid point. But the problem is we don't find our history exciting. We don't want to do the research. You know the gentleman who's creating the story for Nellie Jackson? Of course he's white. He's a white man. He's a white man. He's a white filmmaker who has done the research on Nellie Jackson to tell her story. It's not black folks. Now, we're the best historians in those communities. There is some video footage that I saw of people who grew up in that space who could tell you everything about Nellie. Black folk. Word of mouth. There are black folk who could tell you about the Punch Bowl. Black folk take parts of all of those, all of our lynchings, all of our atrocities, all of everything that has happened to us that deems a positive historical moment as well as a negative historical moment. We've been right there. We've been right there. But we're not the ones telling the stories. And then, for whatever reason, we've worked so hard to disconnect from that part of our lives. So all those who could tell the stories, either they're gone, so they didn't share them, or those who know don't share them. Majority of us are 2 generations removed from knowing who our family members are. We don't know who our great-grandparents were.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know. The average person doesn't know.
In our family, Collette, we got the family historian. Every family should have one.
Yes.
A family historian to document the history of where, our family started and where we're going. And up until this day. Her name is Teacher. She lives in Toledo.
Right.
And she's all about documenting. She got tons. I don't know. She might have 1 million pictures of the family by now. You never know. Because we started our family union way back in the 90s. and that's when the trend that the white people were doing.
Yes.
I don't hear that they're doing now.
No,
Family reunions was a big thing. There were cruises and excursions back in the day, but now you don't hear the family reunion.
No.
Maybe I'm missing. Have you?
No, it's not like I heard it used to be growing up. I know we had our last, I believe, big family. I'm gonna say I was 15, and I think they had one. Maybe I was in my 20s, maybe, and that's the last for my family. Because we're so busy. Everybody's so busy. Everybody doing their own thing. They don't really have time. They don't. You ready for me, Sean?
Well, that's a part of Black history that should never be given away because really, we started it because you didn't want to be, sleeping with your cousin.
Right. Well, we don't want to connect. Look, our clip is ready, everybody, so hold on.
Okay.
Let's hold on. We're going to go to the clip, and then we'll be back, okay? Everyone, just bear with me. That's always what happens, right? When I'm about to give us something, that's how the universe works. When you're trying to give you something really good, then all of a sudden you want to have the issues with the technical difficulties and all that kind of stuff. So just work with us. We're going to continue to have the conversation. Les, thanks so much for holding on. We're just going to roll with it and let you make your last comments if you would like to, and then we're going to keep going.
Every time when you talk, Collette, I'm so happy that you're on it and trying to make folks understand how important America is to us and how we made America so interesting for the rest of the world.
Yes.
And our contribution to America should not be pushed aside. And they should be proud to wave the flag. But, they want to associate it with crazy Leroy and Bubba that we forget that, hey, this is our flag, and we should be proud of the history that we made under this flag. Okay? Not about them. It's not about them. And we keep making it about them.
Yes.
And it should be always about us.
Les, we can't do that because we don't live as free people. Les?
I'm a free man.
I'm
the freest black man in America. I'm happy to be born in 1953. And I just had my 65th birthday a couple of weeks ago. I'm proud to reach that part of my life, to experience the greatness that we are. And I'm looking at how great we are around the world.
Yeah.
It's us that made America great. Yeah. And be proud to be black. And everybody else in the world knows that but us.
And that's the problem. If we ever realized how great we are based on how great they know us to be, so it would happen. Some stuff would happen. It would be some changes in the atmosphere. But we don't understand our greatness. That's why we don't live free. Les, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being who you are and doing what you do. You have an amazing day. So everyone, we laid it out there yet again. And I'm just saying to you yet again, in the midst of all that, if you don't understand from whence you've come, if you don't understand the powers that be, if you don't understand how power is obtained, then perhaps that's why we don't live as free people, because we don't believe that we have power. And if at some point in our lives we knew that we had power, we just gave it away. We give it away right now. We give it away in our vote that doesn't exercise our voice. We give it away in not having a plan for our lives. We give it away by the expectation that everyone is supposed to do something for us versus us doing something for ourselves. I'm tired of constantly talking about everything that they do. That's not my platform. There's some people that get a check for talking about what everybody else does and how we're just oppressed, and every week I'm going to talk to you about the oppression, and I get a check for that. And I can go into different arenas as to where they do that, and they get a check if you like me to, if you need me to. But I hope you understand what I'm saying. For me, that is not the conversation that I want us to have. The conversation that we're going to have is based on what has been presented, what the history has been in this nation. How do you understand it and make it work for you? And take your blinders off and realize that until you actually understand who you are and what this environment is actually, you cannot be free. You don't think like a free person. You don't act like a free person. And it doesn't mean, like Lee Daniels said, we understand there are two faces. No problem. That's the freedom of knowing that there are two faces. There's the freedom of knowing that, guess what? I know how you are, and I need to know what to do in order to get in your world and deal with you. And then I can get what I want and walk out and do what I do over here. That's the freedom of knowing it, because you're astute enough to see what happens and how it works and make it work for you. Now we're going to go to the clip. All the lines are lit. We got hours together, right? So we're going to go to the clip. Let's check it out.
With over 800 military bases and 37% of global military spending, the U.S. has become the leader of a vast, interconnected global system that has helped usher in an era of unprecedented prosperity and low levels of conflict. To understand America's position in the world, and why it's so pivotal for world politics as we know it, you have to go back to the country's founding, back to when America wasn't a global power in any sense of the word. During the first 70 years of its existence, the United States expanded in both territory and influence in North America, eventually reaching the Pacific Ocean, in a wave of expansionism that resulted in the wholesale slaughter of the indigenous people who populated the continent. But early Americans were deeply divided as to whether the country should expand beyond the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. This became a major debate after the Civil War, when some leaders, like post-war Secretary of State Seward, argued that America should push to become a global power. Seward succeeded in pushing a plan to purchase Alaska from Russia, but his attempts to buy Greenland and Iceland, as well as annexed territory in the Caribbean, were all blocked by Congress. That's because some Americans, including many on Capitol Hill, had a strong anti-imperialist bent. These people worried about America getting more involved in global politics, as well as having to integrate populations from quote-unquote inferior races. And this opposition implied major checks on the imperialist urge to expand. But something was happening in the late 1800s that would change the debate about American expansionism. The Industrial Revolution produced explosive economic growth, and the bigger U.S. economy required a more centralized state and bureaucracy to manage the growing economy. Power became concentrated in the federal government, making it easier for expansionist presidents, like William McKinley, to unilaterally push American influence abroad. The key turning point came in 1898, when President McKinley dragged the country into war with Spain over Cuba, despite some intense domestic opposition. The rising United States easily defeated the moribund Spanish Empire, acquiring Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines in the process. Over the next 2 years, the U.S. would annex the Kingdom of Hawaii, Wake Island, and American Samoa. A few years later, the U.S. took control of the Panama Canal Zone and sent troops to occupy the Dominican Republic. It also purchased the American Virgin Islands. This period of rapid acquisition of far-flung territories put the U.S. on the map as a truly global power. During this time, America also began using its influence to protect its growing commercial and military interests abroad, installing pro-American regimes in places like Nicaragua, and playing a major role in international diplomacy regarding the Western presence in China. World War I showed just how much America's influence had grown. Not only was American intervention a decisive factor in the war's end, but President Wilson attended the Paris Peace Conference, which ended the war, and attempted to set the terms of the peace. He spearheaded America's most ambitious foreign policy initiative yet, an international organization called the League of Nations, designed to promote peace and cooperation globally. The League, a wholesale effort to remake global politics, showed just how ambitious American foreign policy had become. Yet isolationism was still a major force in the United States. Congress blocked the United States from joining the League of Nations, dooming Wilson's project. During the Great Depression and the rise of Hitler, the U.S. was much more focused on its own region than on European affairs. Ultimately, America's ever-growing entanglements abroad made it impossible for it to stay out of global affairs entirely. In East Asia, the growing Japanese Empire posed a direct threat to American possessions and troops, bringing the United States and Japan into conflict. This culminated in the Pearl Harbor attack, bringing the United States into World War II. World War II would transform America's global presence forever. The United States was the only major power to avoid economic ruin during the war, and it was the sole country equipped with atomic weapons. As such, it was in a unique position to set the terms of the peace, and, with the aim of preventing another war in mind, it took advantage. The most famous example of this is the creation of the United Nations. The UN Charter set up a system of international law prohibiting wars of conquest, like the ones waged by the Nazis and the Japanese. It also served as a forum in which the international community could weigh in on disputes and help resolve them. This way, the Americans hoped, great powers could resolve their differences through compromise and law rather than war. But while the UN is the most famous of the post-war institutions, it isn't the only one. 730 delegates from all 44 allied nations came together in a small vacation haven in New Hampshire. Their goal? To establish a global financial system that would prevent another Great Depression and World War. The resulting agreement, called the Bretton Woods Agreement, ultimately became the backbone of the global financial system, resulting in the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. By creating these institutions, the United States committed itself to being deeply involved in the world's problems. The issue, though, is that the world's second largest power, the Soviet Union, saw things differently. World War II had made allies out of the democratic West and communist East in the fight against Hitler, but that couldn't last. The United States saw Soviet expansion in Eastern Europe and elsewhere as a direct threat to its vision of a free-trading, democratic world.
To a substantial degree, in one form or another, socialism has spread the shadow of human regimentation over most of the nations of the earth, and the shadow is encroaching upon our own liberty.
Fearful of Soviet intentions towards Western Europe, the US and other European nations created the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, a military alliance meant to stop Russia from invading other countries in Europe. Globally, the US committed to a strategy called containment, so called because it was aimed at containing the spread of communism everywhere on the globe. This new global struggle meant that the US had to exert influence everywhere, all the time. Instead of disbanding the massive military machine created for World War II, the wheels mostly kept turning. This had two main results. First, the US was pulled into unlikely alliances with countries like Saudi Arabia, Israel, and South Korea, seeing each of them as bulwarks against communist influence in their region. Secondly, the US began intervening, often secretly, in dozens of countries to contain Soviet influence. Sometimes this meant propping up sympathetic dictators, like in Iran. Other times, it meant supplying rebels with arms and money, like in Afghanistan in 1979 and Nicaragua in 1985. Over the course of the Cold War, the US intervened in hundreds of disputes around the globe, ending up with a complicated set of alliances, tensions, and relationships in basically every corner of the earth. After the Berlin Wall fell, the US could have withdrawn from the system, severing ties with its allies and drawing down the size of its military. And while the US did decrease military spending, much of the military infrastructure and alliances from the Cold War remained. Presidents George H.W. Bush and Bill Clinton decided that it was in both America and the world's interests for the United States, now the sole superpower on Earth, to continue actively managing global affairs.
We should be and we must be peacemakers.
NATO, created solely as a tool for countering the Soviet Union, stayed together and even expanded, a way of keeping European nations united in the absence of the Soviet threat. Washington's support for countries like Israel and Japan stayed intact, ostensibly as a means of preventing war in their respective regions. The global system of alliances and institutions created to keep the peace during the Cold War became permanent, as did the American military and political commitments necessary to keep them running. This system remains in operation today, and no leading American politician since the Cold War has seriously called for dismantling it. Except, perhaps, for Donald Trump. Trump has said contradictory things about these commitments, but he's consistently argued that American allies are not paying the US enough for its protection, and questioned the value of free trade. That calls NATO and even the World Trade Organization into question.
At some point, we have to say, you know what, we're better off if Japan protects itself against this maniac in North Korea. We're better off, frankly, if South Korea is going to start to protect itself.
Saudi Arabia, nuclear weapons?
Saudi Arabia, absolutely.
This is a sharp divergence from the consensus that has dominated U.S. foreign policy since 1945, and something closer to the isolationism that came before it. So will President Trump act on some of candidate Trump's ideas and reverse decades' worth of institution building and alliances? We'll find out soon enough.
Thank you so much. I love that clip from Vox. Did you get it? How America became a superpower. I know it is so much information for you to absorb right now. But I really want you, the most pertinent thing I want you to take away from that is that what we identified as our ability to influence meant that we are dictators. America is a dictator. Did you get that? We determined as a collective what our power would look like and how we have to now immerse ourselves in other affairs to be able to control for America. The dictator is America, the governance of America, the government of America. And so the ideology is, oh, we're going to protect your freedoms. We're there to help you. We're there to promote peace. No, we're there to control. And did you get the point of when the Berlin Wall came down? I was in Berlin. I was studying at that time in the North Rhine-Westphalian area. When the Berlin Wall came down, I was there. And at that time, we could have removed ourselves. But you heard him say, no, we didn't. No, we're not removing ourselves. because we like the power. Ugh. And so what we use the fallacy, the facade of, oh, I got to keep peace. It has to be just. There has to be somebody that mediates. You know, I got a mediator. I got to have a referee over in these uncivilized countries. No, the truth is I have to control you all so I can manage and maintain my position and my wealth. Quote, America, power was concentrated in American government. That's where the freedom came, because you have the power, so we can go anywhere. We can do whatever we want. We can come in and tell you what you have is inferior to us. You just heard Donald Trump talking about Kim Jong-un, and now you see that's what he said, but now he's trying to build high rises and developments in North Korea because now he's a good guy, right? It's about being a dictator. And so America has dictated to us what we're supposed to do. And it's presented that under the coverings, under the ideal of free will and freedom and democracy. But the truth is, it's never been a democracy. It's always been shadowed by dictatorship. We're going to go to the break. It's 8 o'clock. It's top of the hour. I'm going to come back. All the lines are lit. It's now time to really have a conversation with you. Just set the tone for us. If you think anything different, give us a call. But we'll be right back.